Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. Looks like everything's working correctly here. Good, good. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone is able to rest up, get ready for the day ahead, all that fun stuff. Hopefully you had a fantastic weekend and you enjoyed the time. I know here it basically didn't stop raining. Well, what can you do? You know, welcome to weather. Sometimes it's ridiculous rain here. It's unbelievable. But I guess that aside, hopefully your weekend was a little drier and hopefully maybe you had some fun. As always, before we jump on in, I'm on the right side of the screen this time around. I don't know why I flipped them. It's trying to throw myself off. That's all. Make sure to read through the live Trader Morning Prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. Just a quick note for you all before we jump on in today. Please keep in mind that the YouTube broadcast does have between like a 5 and 30-second delay, depending on where you're logging in from, and that will definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at any given moment. Also, I just want to take a second to give a shout out to the latest members that joined over the weekend, last week, going into this morning, etc. Thank you so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the SSFTG family. If you aren't a member yet, you have a few different options to check out if you are looking to further your trading education and career. One of them actually is right on the main page of SSFTG and on the YouTube page. There's a giveaway going on right now. If you haven't seen that yet, make sure to watch that video and get your comments in there because that will be going out as soon as we hit the 2,000 subscriber mark on the YouTube side. And then we've got 4 giveaways to pull for that one. So I guess that would be one option to potentially look at if you're looking to go that route. Hey, what's up, Sig? But along with that, on the YouTube side of things, below the stream here, you can check the join button, and that gives you access to the extended trading hours room, which we usually have going until around 10:30, 11 o'clock, depending on what's going on the markets. And then, of course, along with that, every member gains permanent access to the Discord chat server, and you also get that awesome badge next to your name here on YouTube to show your support. And plus, it just looks cool. To understand the trading approach. Sorry, my cat's distracting me. Hang on. Come here. Sit. Go. He's not going to stop bugging me either. Anyway, to understand the trading approach and what we're doing here every day in the room, look no further than the Day Trading Academy. Listen, this isn't going to be a small little PDF guide that you're going to finish in an afternoon. You're looking at 19 plus hours of course and study material, not including homework, review, study guides, all kinds of stuff. So make sure to tuck in if you're going to be going that route. And then finally, the big kahuna, the Mac Daddy, the VIP. VIPs can enjoy exclusive permanent access to the non-delayed stream covering the entire morning session from 9 until whenever we wrap up to ensure that you're on the fastest connection possible, and that way you don't miss anything. Alongside that, VIPs also have access to our monthly webinars, which we actually just had one this past weekend. The recording for that I posted as well, so be sure to check that out. Private VIP events, one-on-one scheduling access, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here for the very first time or you are a veteran over on the Zoom stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you trading alongside with me today. Let's take a look at some news, take a look at some events, see what's going on as far as the charts are concerned, and kind of take a look at what's going on there. Don't forget to grab your morning brief levels. Those are posted for you this morning on the major 7 markets that we take a look at: NASDAQ, S&P, gold, crude, euro, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. Got all those covered for you. Taking a look at the news for today, or I guess the lack thereof, there's not really a whole lot. We've got at 1:30 they had what they consider a medium event. I think that's slightly biased considering it comes from investing.com. But they had some of that news earlier. Really, the only stuff we have at 9 o'clock, FOMC member Williams speaking, and then at 13:10, FOMC member Quarles speaking. That's about it. Pretty calm and quiet on the news front. Where'd my clock go? Stay on top. There we go. Okay. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ, see what's going on here, and see if much has really changed. If we're looking at the NASDAQ overall, I mean, the really obvious thing that stands out here is the potential of this being a very nice looking pullback more than a potential reversal point, right? When you have a reversal point, it usually looks a bit more aggressive, where you've got some, some failure movements, some traps on the highs, some really strong breaks through the lows. We did have some traps on the highs. We've got some pretty strong bear moves to the downside, but there's no follow through the bottom. Like, nobody's showing up to the party on the sell side. So with that in mind, I mean, we're kind of in a situation where, how bearish is this really? I mean, yeah, we saw the moving average cluster cross down. That doesn't really mean much. We could just be sideways. So, I mean, when we're looking at this kind of movement going on, I mean, we've got to really kind of look at it with some perspective here, that this could be looking for that strong breakout move. And before, we were already talking about the 14,400 mark on the daily. That objective has already been met. But that ranged all the way up into like the 14,060s. So they've still got some room. We might not necessarily be done grinding higher. And the way that the market is transitioning from sideways and not really getting any momentum down, a lot of failures, that's about it. Looks like we've got some eyes set on the high, and that's the prize. So we'll see if they can make it back up there. More continuation up. Not by much. I mean, it hasn't stayed super bullish, but going into the S&P, speaking of super bullish, the S&P is definitely one of the more bullish markets that we've got going on. And it has been for a while when compared to the NASDAQ. NASDAQ, they had their run last year, right? This year is kind of the S&P and some of the others playing catch up. And this has a really strong, very obvious resemblance to an ascending wedge, but also a spike in channel. It just hasn't really reached out to grab a channel point. That could be a sign of weakness, but with this strong of a move up, how do we say that that's weakness? You know, that doesn't feel right, doesn't make sense. So instead, what that more likely looks like is a point of interest where a lot of traders are going to be not necessarily wanting to buy too high, and that causes these small little short-term pullbacks. And that's what they are. They're very, very short-term. They're not hanging around very long. Eventually, we will very likely, and well, I mean, we will, that's how the market works, get a deeper pullback. Doesn't have to happen right this second, right? It can still keep creeping its way up and pushing into almost 4,300s. We're not that far away anymore. Something to keep in mind. And even if it does break with a spike in channel, what do we expect? A spike in channel breaks back to the channel beginning point, and then it goes back up again, usually, or at least that's the anticipation. Everything's still pointing up. How's it going, Steve? I hope you don't mind if I call you Steve, or if it's Steven, just let me know. On gold, we've got gold is just, man, what a mess. This hasn't really changed much. You know what I mean? Like, we're just stuck. It's not doing anything. Like, man, come on, gold. The only thing that would make sense as to why it would be getting stuck here for so long is because they're trying to transition that long-term POC from way back up at the top, back up in June, like the beginning of June. So if we take that all the way to the end and we drag that down, have they changed that one yet? Whew, man, finally. You remember how long that took? This thing has been stuck up here for ages. They finally have that POC shift to the downside, and it's been stuck here for the better part of a week and a half, 2 weeks now. Took their sweet time, that's for sure, but we do have a successful POC shift. So if we're looking at that from the side of a POC shift, then really, well, we know that if buyers were stuck up here, they've averaged down. At the very least, from a volume perspective, given how long it's taken, I mean, they've only gone down probably about 1-to-1, right? So their break-even point is going to be hovering right around in the middle, around the 1825s to 30s. That's going to be a little bit of an awkward zone because that's sort of that balance point of that giant drive to the downside. And that's awkward because if it goes back up and hits that could create a very strong inflection point to push the market back down. Now, for those of you technical traders, you know what that looks like. That looks to me like a nice little cup and handle potential, and then things start getting a lot nicer. This is the break point, though, because if that slides all the way down, all of a sudden we're back off to a downtrend, and here we go down to 1,500. Who knows? Gold to 1,500, could you imagine? So, something to keep in mind, right? I mean, we do have the POC shift to the downside, but if they fail and they can't get this thing going, usually that POC allows a measurement point to the downside, meaning you measure from the top to where they formed the POC, and then you deviate that down 1-to-1. That gives you an objective to the downside. That's a big move, right? That's a pretty sizable move to the downside if they start failing here. Yikes. Over on crude oil, we've got some solid continuation to the upside. The one big thing that crude oil did finally get was a halfway decent pullback in the sense that they at least broke below a previous swing. Now that they made it back up to the highs, we're seeing the market kind of struggle, and it's kind of looking like a little bit of a head and shoulders are forming up here. That could be a breakout failure, but we haven't really seen the market churn down. I've got some concerns, right? We've got 1, 2, 3 very obvious highs on the top, and that does form pretty nicely a descending wedge. Now, the market is at the lows of that descending wedge, so if the buyers are going to show up, we're sooner to that than later, which is a good thing from the bull's perspective, if we can get some bullish patterning going. But if this begins to fail through the bottom, then we don't have much until, what, 73? Before we really find support. So we're looking at about $1 move down, which is about normal for crude oil. But I mean, we're on the cusp. They've got to bounce here or give up. On the euro, speaking of sideways garbage movement, let's see if the euro's been able to shift their POC. That was the other one that's been struggling to get that job done. They spent enough time here to be able to get it done, you'd think, but nope. Wow. Still not enough time. So the euro, which is actually going to be a slight detriment to gold because they haven't shifted that POC down, their POC is still up at the top. So the euro's still stuck 22,135. That means that if the market does rally to the upside, that's going to add a lot of excess pressure to that inflection point that we were talking about on gold, because we also have an inflection point hanging out on the euro on a drive back up. Okay, so in the short term, it's looking a little bit more bullish, but we've got to be really careful when it starts creeping up there. And if they lose ground, then the bottom just falls out. Over on Bitcoin, we've got that higher low transition. The only thing that's missing as far as the higher low transition is concerned is a break above the high. That's the final thing that we need is proof, and that would be a break above like 35.5. Getting to 36s, and we should be on our way up into that confirmed bull trend. Arguably, we do have it in the shorter term, right? We do have that little lower one, but you know, if we look backward a little bit, these confirmed swings, we're way back here. So it would be really preferable to see this kind of pop above the top, get above 36, maybe even into 37 as extra proof. Then we can get that pullback rally, you know, third higher low, normal reversal type stuff, go screaming all the way back up to the highs. A little bit touchy here, though, considering it hasn't broken that new high. Over on Ethereum, same problem. We've got that swing high way the heck back here up at 22.75. We do have a higher low on the bottom. And as far as a higher low is concerned, they did break a new high. All right, that's all fine and dandy. But until we break that previous confirmed swing, these are all just kind of inside pullbacks. From an Elliott wave perspective, these would be the inside pullback swings, right? We haven't proven it yet. We need a little bit more. See what they're able to do here. Switching gears over on the... Get that out of the way. Come on now. Get that out of the way. Jeez. Over on the NASDAQ, looking at it from the bigger perspective first. On the NASDAQ daily, we've been talking about this shift for a while. Let me zoom in a little closer here. Jeez. That POC shift that happened back at 13,649, the transitional phase. Every pullback inside of there has been nothing but break-evens, exits, buyers. It's just massive bull rallying all the way up until where? You see where our line ended? Ding, 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 ding. Objective done, right? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to stop falling here, but we do know that a lot of traders, if they were buying for 2-to-1s, if they were buying the POC shift, if they were buying POC objectives to the upside, if they were looking at 3-press wedge tops, you name it, everybody has hit a profit target area up here. So that's a really important piece of information that we have to take away from this, because if everybody's starting to hit profit-taking area, that doesn't mean that the top of the market is in, but it does mean that we're very likely to begin transitioning at least into a range before maybe they break out to the upside again and off to 15, 16,000 we go, you know, and NASDAQ pulls a Bitcoin and maybe we're up to 20,000. How wild, right? But this is a bit of a concern, because if the market is going to pull back, these are the types of environments that you need to have all combining together to create that pullback scenario. We'll see. Obviously, when we're at all-time highs, it's hard to talk about doomsday scenarios, but it is something that we do have to at least keep in the back of our mind. Over on the 60-minute, we do have that upside objective. We are looking at that POC measurement, which has arguably held and hit. I mean, 422 up to the 460s, right? We're in that area. We do have increasing volume while we're navigating up into this high, which would demonstrate that we have at least excessive buyers exiting as profit targets, or we have new sellers which are trying to sell in. But if we look at the grander scheme of things, we can see that very obviously this is still detrending volume from the bottom, which means profit taking. We haven't seen any POC shift to the upside. There's no reason to necessarily believe that sellers have done enough damage up here to cause a reversal, which means that we are still in bull mode, obviously, and looking for more continuation to the upside. It's a little bit more difficult up here because we are sitting directly on top of major objectives. Say I love you, right? Let's see what we can get done with it. Over on the 15, and looking at it from the 15-minute perspective, the one very obvious thing that stands out from the bottom to top, if we drag this a little further down and zoom out for a bit of clarity, going from... That's such a funky top that they did up there. I'm going to include this previous swing up here just because of how weird they made that, and I'll just go down to this low. A bunch of funky stuff. We've got a situation here where the last pullback zone really was with a POC that kind of got left behind at around the 275s or so, 270s in that zone. The market really didn't come back to it aside from that early morning retest. And when it started rallying back up, now in the short term, we've got some potential POC shifting with defense. So again, buyers are obviously taking profit at least a little bit more aggressively up here. Not necessarily new sellers or anything, but they might be. We're seeing more strength up here and more in the sense of more volume, regardless of what side of strength that's on. We can see that while price is going up, volume is increasing. That would suggest that there's sell orders. Doesn't matter if it's buyers taking profit or new sellers, they're still sell orders, and they're trying to push back against the market. If we can clear through this POC and start breaking new highs, then we've gone into fresh territory, and the market can start going back into price exploration mode, and then maybe we're off into the races on a no pullback trend once again. We'll see. Looking at the Asian to Euro transition, it is bullish, although the Asian session did try to poke through the lows. More likely than anything, it was trying to fill the gap. They did not fill the weekend gap. That's really awkward, okay? Because they came close. A lot of times when the market just squeaks it like that, there's a very high probability. Let me back up first. There's a very high probability that weekend gaps get filled on that Monday. Now, that said, when we get a situation like that where they just squeak by it and they start racing away from it, a lot of times the market won't come back to fill those gaps until like Thursday, Friday. And that's kind of the idea to the upside, which is fantastic for the bulls because that means that we've got a multi-day rally to the upside just waiting for us. But on the other side of things, we've got to keep that in the back of our mind that once we start getting up to the, Wednesday, Thursday, it's not pulling back. Now we're thinking, wait a minute. What was that open weekend gap? Where are we going to pull back to? That might be a nasty Friday. So we've got to be prepared and kind of keep in mind what's going on here. Looking pretty good to the upside, though. It's looking pretty good. We'll see. Judging from the low, since we did miss that gap fill, we'll start there and work our way up. Before it broke a new high, it was an L2, almost an L3, before rallying back up to a new high. Thank you, alarm clock. I appreciate it. After breaking up to a new high, we had a quick L1 pullback and then a new high. After that L1 pullback, it kind of reset things back into L3. And L3 is usually more of a sign of confusion. Like, well, what are we doing? What's going on? Are we going up? Are we going down? Which way are we going here? And when we have a situation like this, then really we've got bulls who are waiting for a continuation back up to a new high or a new low as proof. And they got the new high, and then they got the L1. Can you make your video webcam? I can't see. Oh yeah, for sure. Sorry, I was messing around with the settings. I probably increased the size and didn't put it back. Let me shrink my face here. How's that? Hang on. It takes a second. There's a delay on YouTube. I gotta see it. boop, boop. There we go. All right, cool. You know what might be a better spot for my face is up in the top left. I mean, how often am I doing something in the top left? Of course, as soon as I do that, then I'm going to have to do something up there. Whatever. Hopefully that's a little bit better. But yeah, just let me know if my face is in the way and I'll move it around. So we've got the bulls who are looking for a continuation back to a new high, and they got it, right? That was the proof. Like, okay, we're in L3. Like, are we bull trend, bear trend? What's happening here? We broke a new high. Now we've got bull trend back on the mine. And what happened? L1. That's the same thing that happened the last time around. It broke to a new high. Well, now my obvious concern is, well, wait a minute. If this is going to be a continuation, then I want to see L1, 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 L1. Now we've gone L1 to L3, back to L1. Now I'm thinking, oh man, is it going to pull back to L3? Like, is this where things fall apart? They broke another new high, got another perfect test of an L1. Okay, we're out of that kind of backward type movement. We can continue looking for L1s or L2s. That's going to be the continuation up. This little pullback right there seems relatively innocuous. That little pullback right there is what basically dictated this entire bull trend as valid. I know it seems totally ridiculous, but now because of that little swing, the only way that this trend reverses is if we break major swings, meaning a new low. And if they're going to be breaking a new low, we're probably going to be filling the gap anyway, and that's not going to be a surprise, right? So that little pullback right there is everything. That means that the next pullback should land in L1, L2. If it pulls back to L3, watch out, potentially exit for a drop. We are basically just told how the entire day is likely going to play out based on that little bitty swing. We'll see how accurate it is, but interesting to see all of that come from that little point. We've got 8 minutes until the open. Usually the open is where a little bit of volatility starts coming in. That's where things start getting a little bit wacky. We'll see what they want to do here. Give me a second to grab a drink. All right. Oh, hang on. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Negotiating Fortnite terms with my son. All right. Going into the open right around the corner here, we've got about 5.5 minutes. There's not a whole lot going on so far. Kind of wait and see what they want to do here. Where did my... There it is. Perpetual motion machine to the upside. At the moment, the S&P is in... Ooh. Zoom out a little bit here. Outside gap up. Still. They've got 5 minutes. I mean, we've seen this thing fade all the way back to the open. Or back to settlement at the open. I mean, it's not unheard of. But at the moment, it's an outside gap up. NASDAQ's pulling back. First zone of interest is going to be in the L1s for buyers. Got the Euro session highs just above that zone. And if we're looking at the volume from, let's look at the volume, we'll subdivide it a little bit, from top down first as a pullback, then the continuation up. I mean, technically speaking, that kind of created a secondary little POC in there. All in the same spot, but I'm going to count this all as one. Just go from the bottom to the top up here. Yeah. Man, they still pull back to it. Lordy, lordy. On this pullback, we've got that nice little dip lower. The POC's right at the bottom, which isn't a surprise because that's an exit. So, I mean, again, even looking at the order flow on the volume side of things, if shorts were in, shorts aren't in anymore. They've already exited. There's nothing that should stop the market from going up, which would lead me to believe that any pullback at the open is just a BTFD. So calls at the open, especially if they're a little bit deeper on the option side, might be kind of nice. Very bullish indications so far. All right, waiting for a little bit of a pullback here. It's going to be really awkward timing. We got 928 right around the corner, and we've got L1, which is right there. Might be more beneficial just because of the open volume to see if they can slide down closer to an L2. Not even necessarily sure they'd be able to make it to an L2, but they can try. That's a really nice bull bar. Directly into 928. Yikes. Time and sales lighting up like a Christmas tree. None of these pullbacks are really enough for me to care about. I'm just going to go all the way up to the top and see where we're at now. 14,373. Yeah, and look where that POC from the bottom of this most recent swing where the sellers got out to the move up. That movement was all the way back, and the POC lands directly in the L2. Everything is saying wait for the L2. Which probably means the Nasdaq's going to do an L1 or a 3, right? We know how this works. The L2 is the zone of interest, 14,373. Open in 1 minute. I can see the S&P, the price line creeping down into view. They're trying to get it back in an inside gap up. See them? They're creeping it down here. No POC shift in the near term. Sellers are trying to get it to migrate lower, and it make a lot of sense to drop it to 14,373 at this point. "20 seconds. A little dip at the open. If it pokes the top, they'll probably get a dip at the open because that'll take everybody's profit target. Unless it just goes screaming through it. No POC shift, though. Looks like they're trying to challenge it around those 90s. Yep, there's the POC shift. Now, again, we already know that sellers have exited earlier, so this POC shift more likely, if it's anything, is just buyers taking profit a lot more aggressively. You'll notice the market just continues to rally above this, which would kind of further suggest that. Back up in the 400s. Jeez, just screaming away. Holy crap. jumbotron move through the through the open. Well, I hope those weren't sellers. Man, if those sellers just got juked right there, they better hope they exited that POC shift. Jeez. Continuing to the upside. Starting to get a bit exhaustive, obviously. This is a slight concern wanting to buy with this kind of momentum up, but wow. All those weekend gaps trying to get it filled. Away they go. I don't even think they've broken underneath a previous candle, have they? No, not even that other bear bar. Finally, there they go. Well, the L2 is, it's a little bit more down towards the lows now. A bit more awkward. 930 showing up with heat. Holy cow. A lot of times when the market's deviated this far away, the first test of the L1 will be a bounce. But I'm not necessarily looking for it to go screaming all the way back up to the highs. This does feel a bit exhaustive. Although we do know that there isn't much holding the market down. There's been no pullback. Hey. This is the biggest pullback they've had so far. Buyers shifting back above the POC and this short-term pullback around the 432s. POC shifting up. Two-legged pullback. Get that bounce off the L1. Ooh, POC shifting down again. The joys of these short-term POCs sometimes. At the very least, we could definitely call this area a wedge. Another nice bull bar here will get buyers involved. I'll be looking for a continuation to the upside. I tried getting a fill on that next pullback, but I didn't get a fill. Next zone. I'm pretty sure I got the worst fill on that first entry. That's fantastic. Lovely. Well, congrats to whoever grabbed that contract from me. Golly. Got another retest of the POC. Looking for it to jerk back above the highs. There we go. A nice pop back to the upside. Even through that garbage fill on the first one, I don't think I could have got a worse fill. Oy. All right, fair enough. That's how we're going to start this week, huh? All right, let's see if we can get another pullback. They couldn't get the L1, but it was fairly obvious they were shifting above the POC. Let's see if they can get another pop. No follow through the top. Oh, Bull's kicking back up though. 14,446 is the high. Bulls are attempting to get a second long. Ugh, God, they're forcing you to buy like right at the top. I mean, longs will take it, but that's that's a tough buy for me. I don't want to take a second long into the highs after potential exhaustion. No. I'm going to sit that one out. First 5 minute is in. On the S&P, it's not looking too friendly. On the NASDAQ, it's looking a little better, I guess. On the NASDAQ, got the POC up at 32, right? 14,432 is the 5-minute POC for the NASDAQ. Ooh, POC shifting up now. If these are sellers, they're making a desperate shot to try to get out here, which may further this squeeze to the upside if it fails. On the S&P, and you can almost feel why, you know, like the S&P's pulling back. If shorts are stuck short, they're like, just pull back. Why isn't it going? It hasn't hit all the stops yet. There's more money to be taken. 76.75 is the POC on the 5-minute, although they didn't really do a whole lot on that one. So how many ticks are in this candle? 78 to 75.50? First 5-minute bar barely even showed up. Look at that bounce off 42. That POC right there. Man, if these are shorts, they are really getting ripped apart right now. Shorts are getting squeezed hard if this is the case. And if it breaks the highs, you'll see another Christmas tree light up on the time and sales. There it goes. No big size getting filled above those tops, though. The majority of them getting hit at 50 earlier. Another to the tick bounce off that 42 POC change. Wow. I don't think we've had an L1 yet, have we? At this point in time, again, exhaustion is my concern. So if an L1 doesn't hold on the next pullback, there's going to be some serious concerns that we're going to be getting a rinse and repeat back to an L3. And an L3 lines up where that POC was earlier. Uh-oh. Remember that POC at 93? Mm-hmm. Holy cow. Just a massacre. So when we're in this type of situation, it's really, really tough to fight the FOMO. It's really tough to fight the FOMO because these are the types of days that will reward it. And, you know, that's great if you walk away today in the positive because of FOMO and it worked out for you today. But the problem is that reinforces some really bad habits. And those habits will haunt you. Just be careful. Stick to the plan. Don't go Leroy on me, all right? S&P still pulling back. NASDAQ saying no thanks. Now, if the NASDAQ does play catch-up to the S&P, you can feel how aggressive that pullback's going to be. But at the moment, we were talking about a BTFD at the open on any dip. There wasn't any. It just went straight up. Wow. Being responsible kind of sucks. Yeah, I feel you. Ugh. I mean, look at the I don't even want the pullback we're working with here on this last one, you know, like just non-existent. Eventually there will be a pullback. There's going to be buyers that buy way too high because they're going to expect this bullishness to continue. And that's why if it doesn't hold high, look out below. We could be getting that flush back down. Right now, though, this gas pedal to the floor. S&P, big separation to the downside. We've got some serious gapping on the S&P to the downside. Potentially, at least at the moment, suggesting downward momentum of 42.69. That'd be down through the range lows of yesterday, or Friday's low. It might be a nice little spot to pick up, honestly. Kind of feels like catching a knife, though, if the NASDAQ starts playing catch-up as well. Ugh. Almost back to settlement on the S&P. Starting to get a little bit of a dip down. Honestly, this first... Oh, another POC shift up. They are ripping size up here like crazy. Let's see what happens. They got another POC shift up. Did they break high? If they break higher again, that'd be like the third or fourth time. I am I'm closely watching this. Got another POC shift. It almost feels like JP's stuck and Goldman's playing him, you know? Like it's kind of what this feels like right now. This is in the hands of much larger bags. Oh, man. Playing around this 52. There's not really any news today. Nice bear bar to the downside. Very nice bear bar to the downside. Okay, sellers got follow through. Let's see how much follow through they get. We are below the POC. They finally gotten below it. That makes me pretty nervous to want to be a buyer at an L1 if it doesn't hold. Yeah, tough life, I know. Don't lay on my keyboard. Come on, man. Cats. Getting a little bit of a pullback here. L1 is a little further away. That 5-minute POC is 432. That would be the more interesting zone. Speaking of interesting zone, look at this blow off on the S&P. Holy crap. To the tick tapped on the L1 on the NASDAQ. Ooh, this string of bear bars does not feel warm and fuzzy. They don't feel welcoming at all. I'm watching this 432 area. That's the 5-minute POC. Hit it. Responded to it momentarily, popping back up. Okay. We're demonstrating at least a little bit. I needed something, right? We've got some support off of that bounce now. Good. Now, they're probably not going to let a pullback happen. But if we do get 3 consecutive really strong bull bars to the upside, seeing any type of sell side movement that fails would be a viable way in. Right now, it's still tough to want to be a buyer, at least way up here. Can they trigger the bears into that? Get another quick little tap down into the 30s? That'd be nice. Notably, a 2-legged correction down from here would be an L2. All right, bulls kicking back up again. Screaming back up again. There's very likely not going to be a pullback. All the way back up to the POC at 52. Be careful buying way up here, right? This wouldn't be too friendly. This is the previous POC. See if they can get a dip down below like the 46s maybe? 45s? Now, I don't want a candle that looks like that. Now, see, that's that's a tough candle to wanna buy into with a twin reversal. Okay, they're poking back up. They invalidated it. If it goes back down, it'd be a bear engulfing. But let's see if they can close above. Okay, they closed above. Holy crap. I don't even think they went underneath the previous candle. We're back above the POC. That bear bar. That bear bar. That, Nope. I got to see that bear bar fail. I can't buy that. What's this POC? Oh, man. Really? At 52. Okay. I'm gonna have a really hard time wanting to buy that. A new dip underneath 32 down to like 30s would be an equalized move. Look at the S&P. I mean, jeez. I don't want to be caught holding the bag. That's the problem, because if the NASDAQ wants to play catch up to the S&P, that's the concern. Now, if the S&P wants to play catch up to the NASDAQ, that could be interesting. Some way out of the money calls or something like that. Same with the NASDAQ, some way out of the money puts to the downside just to accommodate for this drastic difference. They're going to come into parity at some point. They held the 5-minute POC, technically also holding the L1. We've got that the longer-term POC from the bottom to top shifted up to the highs, and even the short-term POCs at the high. I would really like to see a dip down to the low of L1, but, man, they plot bull bars like this, you know. The major concern, obviously, we're below the POCs. Trying. Okay. Bulls are starting to gain some ground here. We're back up to the POC. If the sellers were trying to hold that POC, if it starts cracking above, that's going to be a huge problem. 300 ticks left. Where are they going to close this candle? Another bear rejection here could be catastrophic. I certainly wouldn't want to buy it. Ooh. Yikes. Can they get back above? Okay. Well, they went above, but the problem is that they go back down again. This is just a bear engulfing candle. They've got to go higher. Hard to not kind of like a little inside swing trap low back into the L1 again. Oh, they closed above it. I like this for a continuation back to the upside because the risk is almost non-existent. But the upside, if they crack above the highs, could go absolutely crazy risk-reward. Even there, it took a century and a half to finally get the target taken out on the highs. And it was still, what did we risk? Like 3 ticks? It's really hard to resist that kind of continuation up. Because if it fails back down, it's just game over. Why stay in it, you know? Buyers potentially reloading on this little pullback snap. If it closes underneath it, that's going to be all those buyers who didn't take profit, and now they're stuck. That's why I don't like buying high. Or if you're going to buy high, you're a scalper, right? Don't try to hold a swing trade. Market's attempting to get a little more continuation to the downside. Oh man, that bear bar down doesn't make me feel too no, that doesn't give me the warm fuzzies. If they start retesting back in the 52s and there's responsiveness there, that could be the fall point before the larger two-legged correction. Because remember, they haven't broken a new high. Oh man, it hit that thing like a brick wall. Just rejected right off of that. That's a big clue. Now, they haven't closed the candle yet, but yeah, I mean, look at that. That bear bar back down again, if they're going to look for a shortable opportunity, that's going to be the point. And if it's not going to continue back to the downside, then it's not really worth the risk, right? Okay, nice little scalp back down. Well, it snapped up real quick, but anyway, the scalp back to the downside. The only reason I would consider a short is because of that POC transition that happened there. That's the only reason. And even then, it still jumped up against me real quick. See if they get the pull back to the L1, but cautious on the L1. They might get a little inside trap, but yikes. If they're going to pull back, this is where they're going to do it. We've got the POC shift down in the short term, the long term. Everything is saying that it's going to pull back sooner than later. What better time than now after just getting all the bulls trapped in at the top? Now they can flush. Where's all their stops? Probably below this low. Just saying. Got him. Well, short term at least. They haven't broken that new low. The new low is 31.50. That's going to be the rest of them. The low of L1 is going to be a big zone of interest. A lot of buyers, if they're still bullish, are going to be looking to accumulate those stops like they're going out of style. If they don't hold the L1, then we're probably getting a pullback to L3. That's in the 390s. Yikes. Very strong bull response off of the retest of L1. We're back under the POC, though. You can almost feel how they're trying to get a trap going, right? Like, I don't want to buy this bull bar. It feels like, oh man, if I buy that, it's like sticking my hand right in a trap, you know? See, look at it. Given the context that the market's just given us, it just makes zero sense to want to be a buyer there. Well, they did get continuation down. It ended up being a twin reversal. What a wild candle transition that was. There's the breakdown. Again, none of this is a surprise whatsoever. But if we drag this a little further forward, let's keep paying attention to where that POC is. We don't want to lose sight. Ooh, man, that low got just lit up fast. Big bull bounce back up to 32. This would be a two-legged correction back down as well. If we go from the top down, we're right there. Got about 6.5, 7 minutes until we transition over to the extended session. So if you've got any questions, feel free to get those in. Bulls attempting to get continuation here, 432. POC still way up at the top. More candle gapping to the downside on the S&P, which would suggest downside targets still open, 64.50. But given the pullback that's just taken place here on the NASDAQ, if we start demonstrating support at 32 and inside pullback holding higher, this might be the only pullback we get for the morning session. Remember, if the L1 holds, it's game time. They're in it. They didn't actually hit the low of it, did they? Figures. Very strong continuation up. Short-term POC shifting down. Hey Adam, how's it going? How do you get into the extended session? So if you go into YouTube, youtube.com/slingshot futures, you'll be able to click on the communities page. And as a member of the community, when you click on the communities page, you'll see members only posts. And I posted it on Friday, I think. So you'll be able to find the link right there. Bull transition back above the short-term POC. Quick little flush down for a buyer pop back up. They failed out though. I'm going to jump ship. I don't like that at all. No, thank you. They needed to hold that POC. If this is going to dive lower, they're probably going to get the 3 press low. It was worth a shot, but it was only worth a shot for about 5 ticks. I'm not going to give it more than that. So let me show you now that that's taken care of. So YouTube. youtube.com/ one-handed typing for the win. All right, it's right there. So youtube.com/slingshotfutures. And then you click on the community tab right there, and you'll find the link for it inside there. So 628. That's the link for today. So when you want to join that, you just click on that. It'll bring you right in. Bulls attempting to get that continuation back up, although kind of sketchy. They tried holding that POC. Like, I mean, they already shook me out. I lost interest real quick on that one. Let's see if they show back up to the party. A bull in golfing would get bulls involved, that's for sure. POC shifting down. Bull in golfing candle. I'm going to look for a continuation back to the upside again with relatively smaller risk, but I do like the potential for a really strong continuation pop, especially if they try to get a little bit of a vindictive snapback, because look at all the wicks down there. It's nuts. I love the potential for continuation. If it is going to jump higher, we're looking at a move up to like the 54s, potentially further up. They closed that candle as a doji. No little pullback. I got bottom bid. It didn't even come close to filling me. Can I stop getting bottom bidded, please? Jeez. No fill on that again. All right, well, might not get a chance if they snap back above that doji. There's the pullback. All right, finally got the little bit of a dip lower. Now, I am going to reduce just a little bit on this snap higher because there is a potential that this doesn't get the continuation up. Okay, I'll take that continuation up. There we go. Nice little snap back through. All right. That was a little bit sketchy the way that they shifted back down. Little sketchy. Another strong bull bar. Oh, big bull engulfing candle. Looking for another continuation back to the upside. Vindictive little snap back to POC. I know NASDAQ loves those. Might not get it. Might not get it. Oh, man, that time in sales is lighting up. Hey, welcome, welcome. Beautiful pop back to the upside. Fantastic. I will take that. Nice. You get a Pikachu. All right. Nice little way to end the morning session there, going into 10 o'clock. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. At least not yet. Give a few more seconds, and then we'll switch over to the extended session. Yeah, the members extended session does have a slightly lower delay. That is correct, yeah. The latency on the members connection is like, well, the VIP connection is like, I think 1 second or lower. For members on YouTube, I think it's like 1.5 to 2. No, it's closer to 2 seconds. It's quite a bit better. And on this side, it tends to be, but it depends on where you're logging in from. I've heard as bad as 5 seconds, sometimes worse. So gigantic rally to the upside. Holy cow! There's the squeeze. Now the S&P is going to be the one that plays catch up, unless they get a lower high transition. Yikes! Going into 10 o'clock. So that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you had a fantastic morning session. Let's jump over to the extended session. Get things rolling on that end, and then we'll keep it going. So for the rest of you, if you're ducking out, I hope you had a fantastic trading morning and a great weekend, and we will see you all back tomorrow morning. All right, have a good one, and we will talk to the rest of y'all later. All right, enjoy, rest up, and yeah, we'll talk to you then. Thanks.